Oh, no audio from you. Let me see
No
if I can
audio
get
from
it to
me.
work here on my.
I'm here.
I can hear you, April.
This is at Doc
Come.
Foreman, and you can hear me on YouTube,
La
and
la
that's
la
all that
la la
matters.
la la.
Yes,
Ah,
it is.
perfect.
Okay, so we're so excited to be doing a longer vlog today to talk with you a little bit more about Dr. Jonathan Singer, who is the man behind the Social Work Podcast at www.socialworkpodcast.com. I'm here with Mr. Tony Wood, IT guru and
Let me turn this lower
analytics
third off.
and
That was me.
technology man behind SPSM. Everybody, if you wondered who the guy is who does our analytics and who makes sure this runs, wave to the people, Tony.
Hi, everybody.
And I'm here with Dr. Jonathan Singer. You probably saw him in the introductory YouTube. Everybody say hi to Dr. Singer.
Hey,
Hi,
y'all.
Dr. Singer.
And I'm really excited to have you here today. So I was first familiar with the Social Work Podcast in actually another SPSM chat. We had Dr. Jennifer Muhlenkamp on as our guest expert, and while I was preparing the materials and doing a search of her media content, I came across a social work podcast of her. Ended up making the cut and getting into our blog, and was one of the things that I tweeted out for several reasons. It was listenable and personable and fun. It was just quality media, and it was very engaging, and I was so excited that she had arranged to get that done. I'm at AAS, and I happened to see a tweet from you, and I had to meet you, and I was wondering if you would talk a little bit about how we met and how this project came about, Dr. Singer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was so exciting for me as I was flying to LA from Philadelphia. I hopped on Twitter and I saw that there was a hashtag for the conference, which I was excited about. And so I sent a tweet, and then you replied, and which I was very excited about also. And then you said, "Hey, we've got a social media team for the Suicidology conference this year. Do you want to play with us?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so we met for breakfast in this kind of magical outdoor tent that they had set up at the hotel,
I try to
and
do all of my first meetings in magical tents.
it was great. It was a good call on your part, and so then we talked about it, and I was so impressed with how you had organized the tweets, that you had hashtags and you had a convention for identifying who was going to speak, and you had a team set up, and I thought, well, this is super organized, and you are incredibly energetic and personable, and I thought this is definitely somebody that I would want to partner with around social media.
So I'm really interested if you could talk to our SPSM chatters, and by the way, thank you for the compliment. I am pretty fabulous. Uh, but I was wondering if you talked a little bit about how the Social Work Podcast came about and what you do with it.
Sure. Well, in 2007, I started the Social Work Podcast almost by accident. I was teaching a practice theories course at the University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work, and I realized that the content that my students were learning in the class was going to be more important when they graduated than it was during the semester. I mean, sure, they had to pass their exams and do their papers and whatnot, but really the information about how people think, how they feel, what they do, all those sorts of things is more important when you're a provider than it is when you're a student. So I thought, well, how are they going to get this information? They're not going to be reading their textbook. I mean, half of them are renting them or selling them back. And if I post anything on Blackboard, they're not going to have access to it once they graduate. So I know I'll record a summary of my lecture and I'll post it. So it was late one night, as many tech things occur late at night for some reason, and I said, oh, I've listened to a couple of podcasts, and there's this new thing called the iTunes Store, and I know there are podcasts on there, and let me see if the domain name socialworkpodcast.com is available, and sure enough it was. And so I registered it, and I recorded summaries of some of my lectures, and I I recorded an intro using some music that I had produced because I'm also a drummer, which is why there's that klezmer music in the beginning of the Social Work Podcast, because it's my music, so I can do it royalty free. And I, I I started putting out these episodes about practice theories, and after a couple of months, I realized there were thousands of people coming to the site, and and I only had like 20 students in my class. And so clearly somebody was finding it, and somebody was interested in this information. So once I ran out of things to talk about, I looked around and I realized that I was surrounded by incredibly brilliant people that had really valuable things to say that were stuck in books and articles. And so if I could interview them and have them talk about what it was that they did and what they knew, that could be a really valuable resource for students, practitioners, and educators. And so that's how the Social Work Podcast came to be.
I mean, I know that I found you just by Googling it, and you were clearly a quality enough and frequently enough used source of content that when I Google a famous psychologist like Dr. Muhlenkamp, that pops right up. And, you know, that lets me know that you have a pretty substantial audience. If we're new to your podcast and we were only going to hear, I know this is a terrible choice to make, but if we were only going to hear one of your podcasts, what would you recommend that folks new to your podcast would listen to this week before we hear from you at SPSM on Sunday?
Oh, at Doc Foreman, the impossible question.
Right.
I mean, one of the things about the podcast, and I will answer your question, but one thing about the podcast is that everybody does something different, and so I really try to have a variety of content. The episode that seems to be most commonly downloaded or most frequently downloaded is kind of a lecture-style episode that I do where I cover Prochaska and DiClemente's Stages of Change model. It's downloaded thousands and thousands of times every month. So that's the most popular, but I think most of the episodes are pretty cool.
So, you know, I think this is a really important point, and one that I think bears making explicitly, which is that Prochaska and DiClemente and their Stages of Change series enormously famous in the world of mental health and psychology and in counseling and therapy.
What the hell is it, is my question.
Go to graduate school, Tony.
The good news is I don't have to. I've got you guys.
Or you could listen to the podcast.
And you're cheaper. What is what's the address? What's the URL on the podcast again?
So it's socialworkpodcast.com, and in the upper left-hand side there's a search box, and if you put in Stages of Change, you'll find it. Actually, you could probably just go to Google and type in Stages of Change podcast, and it'll probably pop up in the first couple of pages of results.
Awesome.
And that's exactly the point that I want to make, is that when you Google them, and you Google anything about them in their media, even though these are very famous psychologists, it's your podcast, like your discussion of their work that comes up. What I've been trying to communicate to the mental health community and to the suicide prevention community, although they're really getting it, is that when you have an audience, even though you're not Prochaska and DiClemente, you carry the message. And the reason to be active in social media and to have good media skills is because it's a way that you share your message. And if they had their own podcast, or if they leveraged the podcast of people like you, Dr. Singer, who do really some of the best work, I think, in mental health and social media, especially for podcasts.
Thank you.
It's a sincere compliment. If they did that, that would be a way that, without them developing the expertise, they could make sure, people could make sure to contact you or collaborate with you to help share important messages that benefits you and your audience, as well as the person sharing the message.
It's an excellent point. And podcasts, audio podcasts in particular, reach an audience that other forms of scholarship do not reach.
Mm-hmm. So if you're wanting to create a message that goes, beyond the choir and hits your community,
mm-hmm.
social media is an excellent way to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
So we're going to be wrapping it up. In the comments below, and I'm going to switch camera. I'm getting new to this Google Chat Air Live thing. Thank you for letting me learn and innovate with you, Dr. Singer. But in the comments below, we're going to go ahead and put a link to Dr. Singer's podcast. We'll put a link to information about the Stages of Change theory for those of you who are new to it, like Mr. Wood, who is an IT expert new to the mental health field. And we will specifically link to that wonderful podcast. If you just are going to hit one thing before we see you at SPSM Chat, I'd like for you to hit that episode of Dr. Singer's podcast. And remember that our chat is hashtag SPSM for Suicide Prevention Social Media at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's 10 Eastern. That's 7 Pacific. Mountain Time is in the middle somewhere. If you have any thoughts, questions, or comments, we want you to leave those in the YouTube comment area place below.
And
we promise to
what
look.
day is the chat?
Jonathan, what day is the chat?
The chat is on Sunday.
Awesome!
Sometimes I forget that.
Sunday, May 5th, right?
That's right. And we really, or is it 4th?
Is it the 4th? I don't know. It's this coming Sunday,
So
whatever this is.
So I think it may be the 4th, and this is 2014. There's a first Sunday in May. Google helps solve problems. And we want to see you there. Everybody, this is who you're going to see, Dr. Jonathan Singer. Wave hi to the people. Take care.
Thanks so much, Dr. Norman. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.